my lifelong assistant. It gives me great pride to present to you Ms. Joan May T. Cordova.
Thank you, Alan. It's good to be back in Virginia Beach. I won't recite the whole history that I have with Virginia Beach, but I remember when some of the student leaders who are now leading groups here at this summit were in our workshop as a young student. First of all, I think we should take out our calendars and build a new timeline and add to this timeline the dates for this weekend. We should add the Youth Centennial Summit. We have made history at this event. And I think we should give everybody a hand who came in, who worked on this project. And I acknowledge and totally respect and admire the leadership that we saw before us here. And as part of what I believe in about education and our work, I don't want to forget anyone. So all the people who even practiced a skit, everybody who licked a stamp, who put a string through the name tag, who passed them out, who moved the table, swept the floor, they too should be acknowledged for making history. I was given advice on this keynote address by some students. Soon after I came in, flew into Virginia Beach, I had some conversations sitting on the floor of the Bogano dental office. And I was told, you know, what are you going to, don't make your speech boring, okay? They knew that I was a teacher, and I guess maybe they had associated that with boring, or professor. So I said, okay, I will try not to make this boring. I also was told that some of the things that we had in the office and the things I was referring to was ancient history, you know? So it's reminding me to constantly be relevant. Ancient history, by the way, was the 70s. You mean you're playing a tape deck? Those are old ones, but that tape deck is antique. So it's important for me as an educator to constantly reevaluate the context for which I speak and the context of students' lives. And when I was asked what the speech was going to be about, I said, okay, it won't be boring. It's going to be about you, about you students. And little do you know that I have been listening to and taking notes on many conversations. Well, I will not name names because I think some of the issues that students raise are not just individual personal issues. They are collective issues that may have their roots in larger systems that we need to constantly question. Question assumptions, question how we know what we know. First of all, I want to say that in some of my work, Alan didn't mention that I'm in teacher education, and I travel around the country working with teachers on how to make their schools and classrooms more relevant to multicultural populations. And one of the things that I have to say after last night's program was, since I teach teachers about curriculum, the presentations that I saw last night were some of the best that I have ever seen. And please don't take that lightly. In terms of how presentations build on what we as educators know best about how students learn, we know now that students learn best when they are engaged, when it's fun, when it's stimulating, when it's relevant, their music, their ideas, when they have a chance to be creative, and I think all of these things happen. I want to ask the students now for your permission for me to ask our library, Wheelock College in Boston, to purchase your video, and we will use it to train teachers about how to make their classrooms. Is that okay? Yeah. Can we do that? When we were going over the introduction, I was looking around because I wanted to see how many teachers were here. are. At the same time, I feel that those who aren't are missing out. So I want to just share some of the ideas that I thought were the theme of our summit, ideas that we will continue to reflect on and to think about in this task of building community and transforming schools. One thing that came out was that of forgotten Filipino Americans. Not just Filipinos forgotten from history books or curriculum, but sometimes students being silent. Sometimes I raise the question, when we speak of this historical amnesia where people don't remember Filipino Americans, let's ask, who is forgetting? Who has the power to exclude, to omit? And who is being remembered? What are the implications on all of us when some people are excluded from history? What stands out as most powerful for me over this summit was that every student group, and I think because of the workshop we met with all of the students, every student group was finding some positive way to make Filipino American history and culture more visible in the school and in the community. And this program, I think, is a wonderful example of a collaboration between the institutions like the library and the school district, student organizations, community organizations, parents. Parents had to let their students out of the house. And for those parents who will be watching this video in Florida and in New York and DC, be assured that this was for a good cause. Research shows that students do better in school when the parents are involved. I've also heard students say, I want to be in the curriculum, and it doesn't take a scholar from Harvard to put Filipinos in the curriculum. One student said, you know, I shared my perspective, and now the teacher teaches more about Filipino Americans. That's a strategy that all of us can take. Students want support for their own clubs and organizations, and student says, we are inclusive. We are not about separate. We invite everyone. They can come and learn about our culture and our history. Students also said that they faced incidents of racism at times, and sometimes that's painful to be called names. I think schools have and teachers have a responsibility to deal with stereotypes, to deal with racism. And there is much training available for that. And I also heard students say, particularly high school students, it's great to get together with students from other high schools. Let's start a new network. And that felt really, really exciting to me, and also made me feel a little bit dated. It's like this is another generation starting a new network. And I'd like to pose questions about the idea of starting a new network. What would be the purpose of the network? Who would lead the network? What qualities would you look for in the leaders? How would decisions be made? In the generation of Filipino American community with whom I worked, we've not answered a lot of those questions. Some of the questions like who is forgotten, who is silenced, who is excluded, still happen at different levels. I think the DC people will know as they see different groups. I can't keep up with the acronyms that keep changing their names. Another question about this new network or the new community would be, how then do we deal with conflict? And conflict, I also teach peace and conflict studies, is a part of life. It's everywhere. And what is important is how we respond to conflict. We can turn it into a positive situation. Conflict can be a time for learning new information, taking a new perspective. It can be an opportunity for dialogue, for healing. And I hope that that will happen taught independent study credit. And that's our work on that book counted as part of our credit towards graduation. And that was a significant piece. We also, given that there were few resources, I think I was the only Filipina in my freshman class in the entire university. We sought outside resources and were given university credit to do field work with very relevant community-based organizations. Those options also exist. I can name organizations that would probably be open for interns, and many of the leaders are right here in this room. The work was hard. It was painful, and sometimes friends disagreed. But at FANHS, the Filipino American National Historical Society Conference in 1998, our student group will be presenting a panel on our 25th anniversary. We continue to do this work. This book took 8 years, and it looks so small. This is the first time I've ever spoken about voices in a setting like this. Instead of putting our names on the cover, we decided to give authorship to every single person we interviewed. It says, Voices portrays a segment of American history in the words of these Filipino Americans who have gratefully shared their life stories with us. So they are the authors of the book. In fact, at Harvard Library, if you do a search, the author comes up as Manuel Juan Aguinaldo and Manuel Antaran, and not Jose Cordova. So that was part of what we valued. The times that were very, very painful and we thought we couldn't continue for whatever reason, I would turn back to the words in voices, words from the old-timers themselves. I actually had memorized it, but since Alan has a book, I'll read this. As I look back, I think of the hardship, and like everything else, it is time and place we have to learn to accept. Maybe we can do things in a hurry, but I think the people who have the good intention to help others will get there. Some of the things are painful. Some people today take for granted that changes came easily. It's never easy, but changes must come. I believe changes must come. My mentors, who were the pioneers of this project, were Sebastian and Mary Inosanto. For those of you who are familiar with Filipino martial arts, their son is the famous Yanni Inosanto. Sebastian lived to be 101 almost, and fought for justice all his life. Even when I was struggling through some battles with an institution, from his hospital bed, he was giving me inspiration and advice. And his wife, who was my 5th grade teacher, often would say, she would find a way of responding to conflict with much compassion and focusing on the positive. And it's an approach that I have valued forever. The very last thing I heard him say was, you know, I think the work we began will continue. It's in the good hands of these young people. Thank you.
Hello and good afternoon. I would like to first thank Ms. Joni Cordova for your words are inspiring, and I know they affected all of us during this workshop. Thank you so much. My name is Stefano Reyes, and I'm currently attending Old Dominion University. And at Old Dominion University, our Filipino American Student Association is here to set up outreach programs for the local high schools. It is our chance to give back. And what better way to give back than to our youth? The reason is to stimulate and provoke thoughts, about not only their Filipino and Filipino American history, but about themselves. We want them to be proud of who they are and where they came from. But when you have programs like this, who do you give thanks to? Is it to the students? Is it to the facilitators? The program directors? We give thanks to you, our parents, our uncles and our aunties, our lolos and our lolas. We want you to know that we will not forget about your sacrifices and your hardships that you had when you came to this foreign land. We will document these hardships in our skits, in our poetry, in our readings. We don't do this out of just respect, because it is our duty to document this history. Because if we don't do it, who will? Yesterday, if you weren't at Tidewater Community College, you missed out on quite a show. We had high schools from Florida, New York, New Jersey, DC, put on the most remarkable skits that I've ever seen. Not only were they were heartwarming, but they were inspiring. I actually forgot that these were high school students performing in front of me. Their strong character and their sharp poise was more than words can describe, but only by emotions being felt. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming to our Hampton Roads and sharing your beautiful insight on our people, your people. But today, I'm here to introduce to you another group of young men and women who will perform for you today. I'm sorry, but there will be no singing, and there will be no dancing. But one thing that will remain constant is the truth. The harsh truth of the obstacles and hardships that our loved relatives had to face when coming into this foreign land. The harsh truth of growing up Pinoy Pinay, not only back then, but today as well. So please, pay close attention. Get comfy in your seats and relax. Be prepared, for today your minds will be stimulated and provoked. So please, like Joni said, mark this day in your calendar. For this day on October 12th, 1997, the youth of Hampton Roads will be heard and history again will be made. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm not the same. I'm not Chinese, Korean, Japanese, or any of the other multitude of people who come from your Far East. I am Filipino. I am proud. There are no others like me or my people.
We are in the midst of a death march. We have been walking for years. We have walked and settled in new countries that span the globe. We are in America, Iceland, England, Germany, everywhere.
Through the years we have assimilated. Through the years we have changed. Through the years we are so changed and transformed, it is impossible to find where we started or where we will finish.
Lost is our language, somewhere between here and there. It was decided when we were to speak. Our voice should not sound different, but sound the same, like we belong, like we were American, English, Icelandic, or whatever.
Lost is our culture. Somewhere in the millions of miles and steps taken, our stories, our history, our traditions, our respect were put down and left behind. Our traditions should be their traditions. Our holidays should be their holidays. We should be the same. We should be American, Icelandic, English, German, or whatever.
Lost was our creativity, our passion passion, our poetry. In the cadence of hard marching, we chose to become professionals. We became accountants, nurses, lawyers, doctors, successes. Gone was the philosophy, the painting, the dancing, the singing, the beauty. Our art should be their art. Our masters should be their masters. We should love the American, the Icelandic, the English, the whatever.
The next generation was the goal. Make things better. Work hard so our children can be successful. My mother, she has a degree in commerce from one of the brightest schools in the Philippines. She works at Target. My auntie is a chemist, and she works at Kmart.
My cousin was a doctor. She's a nurse now. Work hard and forget our dreams so that our children's dreams can come true in this world of lies. Our time is past. We have made our choice. Our children will fulfill the plan we started, and hopefully, they will finish.
Have they?
Are we the only Asians who brought lumpia pancit and adobo to the world?
Are we the people whose culture is defined by a few meals and some dancing sticks? Are we?
There is a well of pure power in the hearts of my people. I have heard the cry from the lips of my parents. I know my history. I know the truth.
We are more.
We are more than what they think.
We are more than what we even think. We are warriors, writers, artists, lovers, healers. We are everything.
Most importantly, we are different. We are not like anyone else. We think differently, we express differently.
We are not American, Icelandic, English, German, or any other nationality.
We are Filipino. To a world that tried to break us, we welcome your curiosity and bid you mabuhay.
To our parents who worked so hard to make things right and so different that we could be the same. Will you teach us again to be different? How to be like you so that we can be ourselves? To
You, our elders, we say,
Mahalo
Mahalo
kita. To anyone who does not know, comprehend, or wish to understand, we are part of the countries in which we come from. We earned our right to be American, Icelandic, English, German, or whatever else we chose to call ourselves.
But our
Our
souls,
our
our spirits,
have
have
been,
are, and will always be Filipino!
Short, brown, lovely people from the far east. I see them come to seek fame and fortune over this land. They settled and lived uptown where they are seen but yet unknown and hidden. In the fields where they sweat and blood and suffered in agony, yet never praised or raised. But never did you think or dare of telling the world what a life you had. Yes, it's true that some have gone to disclose the truth on what a fate they had, when others laughed dubiously. And these others, the so-called people that have either gained their position through a half-forgotten pride or remorseful self-respect. I speak not of hate or blame, because you're you. It is their fault, we all know. Yes, we're glad to be here and are seeing these things in this veracity. But happy? Are we really happy? segregation, exploitation, and oppression all behind me. In my wishes, I long to find a place like Shangri-La where there's no discrimination of any kind. But in brown reality, I know this will never be.
Go away! Your kind not wanted. Words and sounds said harshly and with hate. How come? What did I do? Is this what happens to those who merely seek their fate? No, not so. My mind, my heart, fighting back my tears. I go. I find. To be safe, protected from my fears. But wait! Is this what I want? To live in an island, to only leave an island. I fight. I stay. And make this place my land.
He's dying.
I'm sorry, old brown man. I'm to blame for your death. I'm the young soul, spirited as a rattlesnake, cocky, bold, and arrogant. I placed myself before you in all that you stood for. I spend my time just hanging out, with no direction, no focus. Now that I finally realize, no real hope in anything. Yeah, I admit, I didn't care very much about you. I had more important things on my mind. I had to have those speakers in my car, man. I had to have those baggy jeans, man. This pager was my lifeline. You see how I've been seduced by material world and its symbols. A swoosh on my shoes, a horseman on my shirt, a pony on my car. And through my quest to attain these things, I have forgotten you. Forgive me.
I'm sorry, old man. I am to blame for your death. Yes, I made straight A's, reciting, memorizing, regurgitating facts and figures that I couldn't relate to. I was so willing to participate in discussions about Martin Luther King, the Great Depression. I even thought I knew who killed JFK. But when we had that brief little tidbit about the Philippines' role in World War II, I slumped with my head down, praying that the teacher wouldn't call on me to provide some insight about the Philippines I knew nothing about. For some reason, I was ashamed. I don't know why. It's just ashamed. Maybe it was because I thought that you had no part in this country. All that you had to offer was being a cook on Navy ships. That is certainly nothing to be proud of. So I thought. I was so wrong. At the same time, I didn't do anything. I didn't ask why I felt that way, why I was so ashamed. I learned without questioning, without giving you your respect. I went about my life, reciting, memorizing, regurgitating. I did those things, if for no other reason, because I felt I was expected to do so. Where are you? I need you. American history. You're not in here. Maybe that's why I thought you didn't exist. Please forgive me for not looking for you. I'm sorry, old man. I am to blame for your death. But being Filipino in this country is hard, you know. I look around and see no one looks like me. I always saw myself